Shalom everybody, and welcome back to Insights in the Parsha of the week, Parshat VaEtchanan, which is also Shabbat Nachamu and also Tu Bishvat. Okay, we're going to start with some insights in the Parsha. We have this week's Parsha VaEtchanan, a repetition of the 10 Commandments with some various changes of some words, but it's basically a review. There's obviously a lot of depth in that, but we want to go into something else this week. 2 of the 10 Commandments stick out in that they were already told and taught about these 2 of the 10 Commandments. Those 2 are number 4 and 5 of the 10 Commandments. The mitzvah, the commandment of keeping Shabbat. In the first rendition of the 10 Commandments in Parshat Yitro, it says Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadesho, remember the Shabbat. And in this week's Parsha VaEtchanan, it says Shamor et HaShabbat, to guard, to keep. Okay, so what sticks out with this, and then the next mitzvah afterwards of Kabed et Avicha ve'et imecha, you should honor your father and mother. So it says like this. Let's look inside. It says Kasher tziviticha. Look at the wording here. In chapter Hey, verse 15, where it talks about the commandment of keeping Shabbat, it's a few verses. Verse 15 is the final verse on Shabbat. V'zacharta ki eved hayita be'eretz Mitzrayim. You should remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Vayotziacha Hashem Elokecha misham. And Hashem, your Lord, took you out there from Egypt. Biyad chazaka, with a strong hand, with zura netu, and an extended arm. Al ken tzivcha Hashem Elokecha lasot et yom Shabbat. Sorry, it's not here. I'm mistaken. It's over here. Tzivcha Hashem Elokecha. It's the first verse. Sorry, my bad. Verse 12, chapter 5, verse 12. Shamor et yom Shabbat dekadesho kasher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha. So you should guard the day of Shabbat to sanctify it. Ka'asher tzivecha, like you've been commanded by Hashem Elokecha, God your Lord. So Rashi asks, what does this mean? Like you were commanded. Where were they commanded already before the 10 Commandments? So Rashi says, Ka'asher tzivecha, kodem matan Torah b'Marah. The Jews are already given the laws of Shabbat in Marah. Marah was the place the Jews went to from the splitting of the Red Sea. If you recall, in Parshat Bishalach, in the book of Shemot, it says that the Jews, after the splitting of the Red Sea, they reached a place called Marah. Marah means bitter, and it was called bitter because they reached waters that were bitter. They couldn't drink the waters, they were too bitter. And the Jews started to complain to Moshe what to do. So Moshe davened, and Hashem showed him a tree. Throw this tree into the water, and the water will be sweetened. And that's what he did. He put the tree in the water, and the water became sweet. That itself is so deep. And then it says there, Sham sam lo chok mishpat v'sham nisahu. And that is the place in Marah that Hashem placed through Moshe for the Jews, what's called chok mishpat, statutes and laws. V'sham nisahu, and it's there that Hashem tested the Jews. What was the test? To see how they would react when they were faced with this test of the water. And they failed the test, because instead of holding on, having emunah, they started to scream and Moshe Rabbeinu, what is this? We have no water to drink. The word is vayilonu. They started complaining, what is this? What is this? Okay, and that was considered a failing of the test. So it was there also that Hashem gave the Jews to tell Moshe to teach already prerequisites of some of the laws of the Torah. One of them is, like we see now, is Shabbat. And then when it talks about in verse 17 about the next law, number 5 of the 10 Commandments, Kabed versus verse 16. Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha kasher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha. So you should respect your father and your mother, like Hashem commanded you. Again, kasher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha. Where? So again, Rashi says, kasher tzivcha, like Hashem commanded you. Afal kibud av va'em nitztavu b'Marah. Also, the honoring of father and mother was also commanded, taught to the Jews. They were ordered to do it eventually in Marah, like it says, Sham sam lo chok mishpat. Okay, so Rashi here quotes the verse that we just quoted from Parshat Bishalach, chok mishpat. So they explain, the commentaries explain, Chok is referring to Shabbat, and mishpat is referring to respecting the father and mother. Why? Chok is something which is beyond reason. It's a mitzvah that we're told to believe in, even though it does not make sense. In this angle, Shabbat doesn't make sense. It's one thing that Hashem created the world, but now to tell us to keep a day of rest because He rested, okay, you can question that. Also, the idea of refraining from working and everything, you can give ideas, but technically it falls under the category of chok, because still at the end, if we're to be sustained and Hashem wants us to live in a world where we do things in order to live, like we go to work and make a living, so why take us away from that? It's in the domain of emunah, yes, but because it's in the domain of emunah, it's called a chok. It means it's not rational. Whereas respecting one's father and mother, even if the Torah were not to tell a person to do so, it makes perfect sense and it's normal. Normal people respect their parents. The one who brought you into the world, the mother who suffered 9 months and then pampered you and changed your diapers and fed you and breastfed you and took care of you, and your father also who worked hard to sustain you and to try to guide you and to give you a good education. It's normal that a person runs to mom and dad and he has a mom and dad relationship. Normally, there's always these crazy exceptions, but in normal cases, a child respects his parents. Okay, even if it's difficult, but it makes sense. They raised me, they took care of me, they were my shelter. I turned to them always when I was scared and I was panicky and I a little baby shaking, and I had my parents there to help me. So it makes sense. It's a mishpat. It makes a law sense. It's a lawful sense that a person should respect his father and mother. So that's mishpat. And chok is Shabbat. So both of these were given already in Marah. That's what it says, Kasher Tziviticha already. It can only be, the only place before the Ten Commandments were given over at Har Sinai was Marah. And we're taught that's where Hashem gave his chok or mishpat. Chok being Shabbat, and mishpat being the idea of respecting the father and mother. And now the Gemara, and Rashi quoting the Gemara, not in this part, not this Parshat Beshalach, he brings down that the Gemara says a list of 10 things that the Jews learned in Marah. 7, which are really 8, are the 7 laws of Noach, the Noachide laws. Plus number 8, which is really included in the 7, is to appoint judges to fulfill them. So these 7 Noachide laws are called dinim, because they're things that everyone has to keep, Jew and non-Jew alike, and they make a lot of sense why not to do it, why to observe it. And the appointing of judges, it's a similar word, dinim and dayanim. Dayanim are the judges that you have to force to enforce keeping the other 7. So these are really 7, including 1 making judges. So it's 8, which are really 7. And then number 8 is Shabbat. Number 9, respecting the parents. And then 10 is added. Rashi brings the red heifer, Parah Aduma. Parah Aduma is definitely in the category of a chok. The 7 laws of Noach are definitely in the category of a mishpat. It makes sense. And to appoint judges, that's a mishpat also. So you have under the category of chok, Shabbat, and the red heifer, Parah Aduma. And under mishpat, you have respecting the parents, and also the 7 Noachide laws, including appointing a judge to do them. So these were given before Har Sinai. The question is, why? Why these ones specifically? Why Shabbat out of the 10 commandments? Why Shabbat in respecting the parents? You have, Anochi, the first commandment. The second, Lo Te'elecha, Lo Tirtzach, Lo Tignov, Lo Tachmod. All these laws, that make sense, but they weren't given before. Shabbat was given and respecting the parents. What's the difference? It's hinted to in the verse. The verse that's from Parshat Beshalach. Sham sam lo chok u'mishpat v'sham nisau. There, in Marah, the Jews, Hashem gave the Jews chok and mishpat, laws which are statutes, which kind of understand like Shabbat and the red heifer, and mishpat, v'sham nisau, and Hashem tested them. So the test was with the test of the bitter waters. So the question is, why did Hashem give them laws there with this test? To show them that in this test also, there are laws of Torah that correlate to this idea that you're going to be tested in life with emunah, and it's going to be difficult, and you're going to have to hold on to the test. Even if you fail the test, you have to continue going on and holding on. That's what the idea that Hashem gave them after they failed the test of the bitter waters. That Hashem gave them laws to learn. What's the connection? Why give them laws to learn if they failed the test? To show them that even if you fail the test, there is a Torah study. There are ideas of the Torah that correlate to this. That these are difficult things to fulfill, and yet I'm doing them, and I out of total emunah. So that's the idea of chok and mishpat. The mishpat makes sense, but these two laws, the respecting of the parents and the 7 laws of Noach, are difficult to do. They're difficult. They're not easy. Okay, the law of respecting one's parents. Even though you do that, you have a tendency to it's normal for a child to respect the parents, but still, it's not easy. It's a difficulty. The 7 laws of Noach is also difficult to keep. It's not so easy. It's hard. The person wants to do this, wants to do that. He has tendencies, negative desires, but he has to put them in check. And there's also judges to appoint. By the red heifer and Shabbat, those are definitely in the category of a test. Because here, Shabbat is a day you're restricted to what you can do. You can't do this, can't do that. I want to go out. I want to go to watch movies. I can't do anything. I can't do anything. That's the idea of Shabbat restricting a person. And the red heifer, Rav Nosson explains, the red heifer is the idea that it's beyond logic, beyond rationale. Because the red heifer involved making pure the impure and making impure the pure. Those who were involved, the Kohanim were involved in the burning of the ashes of the red heifer and the sprinkling and everything. They became impure. Even though it was only for 24 hours or until nightfall, but they became impure. Why? But yet the one who was impure with a severe impurity of coming in contact with a dead body, a corpse, he was made pure by these ashes. By these Kohanim, they're sprinkling the ashes. They're prepared the whole setup of the red heifer's ashes. They're impure while they're making him impure. Doesn't make sense. It's beyond rationale that somebody can make someone who's so impure pure, and at the same time they get burnt by it, they get hurt by it. Doesn't make sense. So this is an idea of a chok being beyond rationale. Okay, this is an idea of these ideas. So this was all given in Marah. Marah means bitterness. The idea is these 4 categories stick out in that a person, to do them, has to experience a type of bitterness beforehand. So now the question again, why were these given before the 10 Commandments? The 10 Commandments is going to contain again Shabbat, and it's going to contain the law of respecting the parents. And included in the 10 Commandments is also the 7 Noachide laws also. These are going to be given already in Har Sinai. So why was it necessary for Hashem to give them a foretaste of specific laws, certain ones, these ones? Because it was a test to show that in order to get to the light of Har Sinai, the Keter, the light of the Torah that exposes a higher light called the infinite light, first prerequisite is you have to go through some bitterness in life. And the laws that are associated with the bitterness are specifically these 4 because of the difficulty involved in doing them. It's not difficult not to murder, not to steal. That's not difficult, the other of the 10 Commandments. But where it requires an effort, then I have to refrain on Shabbat. And also I have to respect my parents. Even if I don't get along with my parents, I have to show them a respect. It's not easy. So this bitterness it's fitting, it's mat'im with the idea of Marah, which was the test that Jews were given before reaching Har Sinai to receive the Torah on Shavuot. And this lesson is the point that when you go through bitterness in life and you even fail tests, but you continue with Torah study, with emunah, with learning ideas, showing that that's a part of life, that there is a difficulty, and I'm learning about it, and I'm trying to accept it, this is afterwards the gateway for receiving the 10 Commandments, receiving the Torah, receiving the Keter. So now, this also explains Shabbat Nachamu, where the Haftarah says twice Nachamu, Nachamu, a double consolation. Why is there a double consolation? I need a consolation for Marah, for the bitterness that I went through in my life, and trying to learn Torah, trying to connect with difficult situations, yet holding on. That itself, I need a consolation. And the second consolation is the consolation itself, the light that I get as a result. That itself is another consolation. So number 1 consolation is to help me through all the bitterness that I went through. I need a payback for that. That's one consolation. It's Nachamu. And then the second Nachamu is the actual light that comes after being consolated for all those difficulties that I went through to now advance. It's one thing now to pay back for the pain and then to reward, to add additional. So this is the idea of Tu B'Shvat, of Shabbat Nachamu. Number 3, it's also Tu B'Av. Tu B'Av, in historical perspective, 2 amazing things happened. Number 1, the Jews who had to die in the desert on that last Tisha B'Av, Tu B'Av, they stopped dying. The Jews rejoiced because now all the Jews who were entering the Holy Land are now alive, and the ones who passed on, so there's no more waiting in the desert. And number 2, it was a day designated for Shidduchim. It's summertime, and there was a time when the Bachorim would go looking for good Shidduchim. So these two important parts in a person's life: the time of his death and the time of getting married. These two also have, in a sense, they're like a chok and a mishpat. Death is considered like a chok because it's beyond. You have no idea when the time will pass. Any day a person can leave this world. A person doesn't know when he gets off the train. So it's like a chok. And the mishpat is a person has to get married. It makes sense. On one hand, it doesn't make sense, but that's the way that Hashem designed the world, that a man gets married, has children, sustains. This is the continuity of the world. This is how Hashem wants, in the format of mishpat, to take care. So this chok and mishpat repeats itself in several ways. In the Parsha, and also in Shabbat Nachamu, and also in the idea of Tu B'Av. These are many ideas. I hope you can see the connection. May we be zoche b'ezrat Hashem to now have a major consolation, have simcha through all the Marah, all the bitterness we've gone through in our lives, to now learn Torah ideas that strengthen our emunah, to give us the strength to endure, to continue, and to receive the light, b'ezrat Hashem, the infinite light, when that harboring the bringing of Mashiach and the third temple, b'ezrat Hashem. Shabbat Shalom.